video is a crossover of two different formats I normally do, the scene analysis series and the making a short film series. Because this time I'm going to be breaking down a scene that I directed in order to give some insight into the process and preparation. So I always start with the concept or the script. In this case, it's the script. In your case, maybe you don't have a script.
Maybe it is a shoot.
So let me summarize the scene quickly. The scene features a couple that are meeting up after the girlfriend has been on a work trip, but things quickly become tense and awaken some core issues in the relationship, because the boyfriend suspects she cheated on him during the trip. However, he slowly pushes the conversation in a direction to make her think that he cheated while she was gone. In the end, we find out that this was an attempt to try and make her understand how he feels. Pretty manipulative, right?
Brother, what's that?
And then we end in a kind of stalemate where probably neither of them will compromise. A little bit too realistic, eh?
Okay.
So as I've mentioned before, it's always important to get to the core idea or theme or concept. Now, the core of this film concept is to show windows into moments in people's lives. So I'm immediately thinking about how it should feel authentic and natural. Yes, it's staged and therefore inherently theatrical, but it should still feel somewhat realistic. So on a macro level, it's about insight into people and how they behave, but right now we're just looking at one scene on more of a micro level. So what's the core of this scene? To me, it's insecurity, more specifically the insecurity of the boyfriend. That's the core driver of the confrontation in the scene. So we have to think about things like the shifts in tension and power dynamics which occur multiple times during the scene. So let's go through the scene in more detail. We begin with relatively awkward small talk, kind of a catch-up. She's tired, he's trying to get information out of her.
Was gibt's zu erzählen? Es war eine Konferenz.
But eventually he switches.
Du weißt, ich bin nicht blöd, oder?
It becomes clear that he's not in fact trying to make small talk, but is suspicious of her. He's afraid she's cheated on him and wants her to be honest with him. The tension increases with this confrontation. Keep in mind, he's the insecure, fearful one here, so she holds the power to potentially hurt him in this moment. She seems to have heard something like this before and tries to address the issue, his insecurity, directly.
Du musst mir vertrauen, aber das tust du offensichtlich nicht. Warum?
He admits to being afraid of being hurt by her actions. They seem to be working it out and the tension's diffusing. Things are balancing out again. She explains that of course she also has insecurities but knows that he wouldn't cheat on her, to which he replies, "And what if I did?"
Doch.
So this is the next turning point. Now the tables have turned to where she becomes suspicious of him. The tension rises again, but now the power to cause pain has shifted to him. He's gained some form of control. He now tries to use her previously used rhetoric addressing his insecurity to challenge her. He explains that the feeling of insecurity he induced in her is exactly how he feels when she's away. So now we're aware that making her suspicious was a manipulative tactic, that he intentionally shifted the suspicion. She notices what happened and returns to challenging the logic of his argument, asking whether she should quit her job because his fragile ego can't handle her going on a work trip.
Soll ich kündigen, weil dein Ego eine Geschäftsreise nicht aushält?
Intellectually, having returned to the logical argument, emotionally irritated by the manipulation. And then we finally reach the crux of the argument. The boyfriend explains that the relationship is starting to feel like a long-distance relationship, and he doesn't want that. His final suggestion is that they should either find a solution that works for both of them or break up. They end with this stalemate.
Ich will mich nicht weiter in dich verlieben, während du dich immer weiter weg von mir entfernst.
Now, I've noted these key moments and shifts, some of them in my copy of the script that I bring to set, so that when I'm directing the scene, I can check that I'm noticing and feeling these shifting dynamics during the performance. I mean that on an emotional level. If I'm sitting there in the scene with them, do I feel this tension, the discomfort, and the release? This is why it's also important to rehearse, because you'll be able to notice where there might still be issues in the scene. And I also ask the actors whether the scene and the dialogue make sense for them. Is there anything that feels unnatural or confusing? In the end of the day, they're the ones speaking and moving and embodying these characters. If they don't believe what they're doing, no one else will either. From what we gather at the end of the scene, the girlfriend doesn't see this as an issue that she should help resolve, and the boyfriend doesn't see this as an issue that can exist within the relationship. Their individual perspectives and positions seemingly won't allow them to find a solution. Now that's my perspective. I have my understanding of the lives of these characters before and after the scene we see, but it should be open for the audience because maybe they'll see it differently. Maybe they've gotten out of a situation like this before. A more important aspect for our process is how the actors interpret it. I like to leave it open to them, but if they want my perspective, I'm happy to give it. As long as the scene functions how I imagined it, I would prefer that the actors find their own way to the performance. From my experience, actors generally prefer this as well. However, if something isn't working, then I would open a dialogue about the characters and their situation. Maybe the actors misunderstood something in the script, or maybe I'm missing something that they've seen. It's best to talk it through to make it clearer for everyone. Keep in mind, this scene was shot in one take with the intention of using it as one take, so everything needs to work in the performance. So taking the time to discuss things and work through the scenes in rehearsals was essential. Every discussion you can have in a rehearsal is a conversation you can save yourself from having on set when the clock is ticking. I know some people prefer not to in order to keep things spontaneous and fresh, but I would highly recommend rehearsing. Now, with regard to the music and sound design of the scene, I won't go into too much detail because it's predominantly there to make the scene feel full and is reflective of or almost responding to the conversation.
Du dich immer weiter weg von mir entfernst.
So the environmental sounds and their timing correspond to specific key moments in the scene. So they sound natural, but should have a subtle narrative impact.
Sounds about right.
So that's all for now, and if you have any questions, let me know. Now get the fuck out of here and make your film.